Good morning, everyone. Look at where you are standing right now. Every single one of us carries a backpack full of yesterday. We carry the mistakes, the rejections, the moments we failed, and the moments people failed us. But somewhere along the line, we stopped just carrying the backpack. We let it become our anchor. We let events that happened 5, 10, or 15 years ago dictate what we are capable of achieving today. Let me ask you something. How long are you going to let a ghost run your life? The past does not exist anymore. It is gone. It has no physical reality, no power, and no voice. Except for the power and the voice you actively give it every single morning when you wake up and choose to hit replay. You are using your memory to torture your potential. You are looking at the windshield of your life through a rearview mirror, and then you wonder why you keep crashing. If you want to change your trajectory, you have to change your story. Stop identifying with the version of you that broke. Stop introducing yourself to the world through your trauma, your bankruptcies, or your heartbreaks. Those things happened to you, or they happened around you, but they are not you. They were lessons, not life sentences. Change doesn't require a decade of waiting. It doesn't require a perfect alignment of the stars. It requires 1 second of absolute, uncompromising resolve. It happens the moment you stand up, look your history in the eye, and say, "You served your purpose, but you don't live here anymore." Draw a line in the sand today. Take responsibility for your life. Not because what happened back then was fair, but because your future is too valuable to forfeit to someone or something that isn't even in the room anymore. Wake up to the power of right now. Build a vision for your future that is so loud, so bright, and so massive that it drowns out the whispers of your past. Your history is set in stone, but your destiny is still fluid. Grab the pen, step out of the rearview mirror, and start writing the chapter you were actually born to live. We have a dangerous habit of turning our history into a prison cell. When you look back at the landscape of your life, at the failed businesses, the broken relationships, the missed opportunities, and the moments where you simply weren't strong enough, it is incredibly easy to mistake those events for a final verdict. We look at our yesterday and we think, this is who I am. This is all I am allowed to be. But that is a fundamental misunderstanding of time, memory, and human potential. Your past is not a sentence. It is not a judge standing over you, hammering a gavel, and locking you away in a box defined by your oldest mistakes. Your past is a map. Think about what a map actually does. A map does not tell you where you must go. It does not force your feet to move in a specific direction. A map simply tells you where you have already been and what the terrain looks like. It shows you where the dead ends are. It shows you where the potholes, the sharp cliffs, and the dangerous swamps are located. If you drove your car into a ditch 5 miles back, a map doesn't force you to drive into that ditch again. It simply marks the spot so that when you pass it next time, you can steer clear of it. When you treat your past as a map, you look at your failures as data. You look at your pain as a navigation tool. You look at the moments you got hurt or knocked down and you say, I see what happened there. I see the path I took that led me to that outcome. Now I know how to navigate differently. That is wisdom. That is growth. That is using your history to build leverage for your future. But when you treat your past as a sentence, you stop driving altogether. You sit at the steering wheel, staring at the map, weeping over the ditch you fell into 3 years ago, completely paralyzed. You allow a temporary event to become a permanent identity. You say, because I failed then, I am a failure now. You allow the people who hurt you, the environments that restricted you, or the poor decisions you made when you didn't know any better to dictate your current boundaries. You hand over the keys to your life to a version of yourself that doesn't even exist anymore. The version of you that made those mistakes is gone. You have survived every single bad day, every single setback, and every single heartbreak up to this exact moment. You are smarter now. You are more resilient now. You possess insights today that you completely lacked back then. So why are you letting a less experienced, less mature version of yourself write the rules for what you can accomplish today? Look at the map, analyze the terrain, accept the data, and then look out the front windshield. The road ahead of you is completely blank. The ink has dried on the pages behind you, but the chapters ahead are waiting for you to pick up the pen. You are entirely free to change direction, to choose a different path, and to explore uncharted territory. Your history has given you the coordinates of where you've been, but your will determines where you go next. Step out of the prison cell of your memory. Put the map in your pocket, look forward, and start walking toward the future you actually choose to create. We often fall into the trap of believing that true life transformation is a long, agonizing, bureaucratic process. We tell ourselves that in order to undo years of bad habits, decades of self-doubt, or a lifetime of being stuck, we need an equal amount of time to reverse the damage. We treat change like an enormous, heavy wheel that takes months or years of agonizing strain to turn even a fraction of an inch. Because the mountain of our past looks so massive, we delay taking action, waiting for some perfect future moment when the stars will align, the motivation will hit us, and the path will suddenly become easy. But the truth is, real change does not happen incrementally over decades. Change happens in an instant. It happens the exact moment you make a radical, absolute, and uncompromising decision. We use the word decision very loosely in modern society. We say things like, I've decided to start eating healthier, or I've decided to write a book while still eating the same junk and staring at a blank page. That is not a decision, that is a preference. That is a wish. That is a casual daydream. The true etymology of the word, decision, comes from the Latin root decidere, which literally means to cut off. When you make a real decision, you cut off any other possible outcome. You eliminate the safety nets. You burn the ships at the shore. You completely destroy the possibility of retreat. A real decision means there is no plan B because plan B only serves to distract you from plan A. It means you look at your current circumstances, your current bank account, your current health, or your current relationship status, and you say, no more. I am no longer available for this version of reality. This ends today. The present decision is the ultimate equalizer because it doesn't care about your history. The past has absolutely no power over the exact second you are living in right now. Your past might have conditioned you to think poorly of yourself. It might have given you a mountain of debt, and it might have surrounded you with people who doubt your potential. But the past cannot stop you from choosing a different thought, a different action, or a different standard in this precise moment. Think about the sheer velocity of a single choice. In 1 second, you can decide to forgive someone and instantly drop a weight you've been carrying for 10 years. In 1 second, you can decide to throw away the substance that has been destroying your health. In 1 second, you can decide to speak up, to show up, to apply for the position, or to walk away from a toxic environment. The trajectory of your entire life can pivot on a dime based on what you tolerate and what you refuse to tolerate anymore. The problem is that most people live in a state of perpetual hesitation. They are waiting for permission, waiting for a sign, or waiting until they feel completely ready. But readiness is a myth. You will never feel fully ready to change what is comfortable, even if that comfort is miserable. You have to step out into the dark before the light turns on. Stop treating your life like a dress rehearsal. The clock is ticking, and the only currency you actually possess is the present moment. You cannot fix yesterday and you cannot control tomorrow, but you have absolute, sovereign authority over right now. The person you were 5 minutes ago does not have to be the person you are 5 minutes from now. You are one radical decision away from a completely different life. Raise your standards, cut off the options to quit, and make the choice that your future self will thank you, for the most powerful force in the human psyche is the story we tell ourselves about who we are. From the moment we wake up to the moment we close our eyes at night, there is a constant, unbroken commentary running in the back of our minds. This is our internal narrative. It is the narrator of our lives, interpreting everything that happens to us. The danger is that we rarely question this narrator. We treat its voice as absolute truth, forgetting that it isn't an objective reporter. It is a biased editor picking and choosing which facts to highlight and which ones to bury based on an old, outdated script. Most people believe they are held back by external circumstances, by a lack of money, a bad economy, an unsupportive family, or a string of bad luck. But if you strip away the external excuses, you will find that people are almost always defeated by the story they keep telling themselves about those circumstances. If your internal narrative says, "I have always been someone who gives up when things get tough," then the moment a challenge appears, your brain will actively look for a way out to fulfill that identity. If your narrative says, "People like me don't succeed in this industry," then you will unconsciously self-sabotage every opportunity that comes your way just to keep your reality aligned with your story. We will do anything to stay consistent with who we believe we are, even if that identity is miserable, limiting, and destructive. Your current story was likely written by people who didn't even know your true potential. It was written by a hyper-critical parent, an ex-partner who couldn't appreciate your value, a school teacher who judged you on a standardized test, or a younger version of you that made a massive mistake and assumed that mistake defined your character forever. You have taken the criticisms, the rejections, and the failures of your past and woven them into a tight, suffocating straitjacket that you wear every single day. But here is the breakthrough. You are not the character in the book. You are the author holding the pen. Rewriting your internal narrative requires you to wake up to the language you use when you speak to yourself. It means stopping yourself mid-sentence when you start chanting the old slogans of your limitations. When the voice says, "You're going to mess this up just like last time," you must step in as the editor. Interrupt the pattern. Challenge the premise. Is that actually true? Is it an undeniable fact, or is it just a comfortable lie I tell myself to avoid the discomfort of trying? You must begin to deliberately feed your mind a new script backed by evidence. If you want to change the narrative from "I am weak" to "I am resilient," you have to look back at your life and find the receipts. Look at the times you were knocked flat on your face and somehow found the strength to stand back up. Look at the times you survived the things you thought would break you. Pull those files out of the archive and make them the headline of your new story. Stop giving the villain of your past all the dialogue in your present. Your trauma may have started the story, and your setbacks may have filled up the middle chapters, but they do not get to dictate the ending. You have the power to turn the page right now. Decide today what the new theme of your life will be. Will it be a tragedy of what could have been, or will it be an epic of a person who overcame the odds? Change the story, change your focus, and watch how quickly your entire reality shifts to match the new script you have chosen to write. Blame is the most addictive drug in the human experience. It is highly accessible, completely free, and provides an instant, temporary relief from the stinging pain of failure or dissatisfaction. The moment you face a setback, whether it is a failed project, A collapsing relationship, a stagnant bank account, or a decline in your physical health, your brain immediately looks for a target outside of yourself. It points a finger at the economy, at your upbringing, at your boss, at your ex-partner, or at the sheer unfairness of the universe. For a split second, pointing that finger feels incredibly good. It absolves you. It tells you, this isn't your fault. You are completely innocent here. But while blame cures your ego in the short term, it utterly destroys your power in the long term. The moment you blame an external factor for the state of your life, you are handing over the keys to your kingdom. You are declaring to the world that you are a helpless bystander, a leaf blowing helplessly in the wind, entirely dependent on outside conditions to be favorable before you can succeed. If your happiness depends on your boss being nice, your financial security depends on the government making the right decisions, and your peace of mind depends on other people treating you perfectly, you have effectively enslaved your future to variables you cannot control. You have traded your autonomy for the cheap comfort of being a victim. Shifting from blame to absolute ownership is the exact moment a person steps out of childhood and into true psychological maturity. Extreme ownership does not mean that you are responsible for every bad thing that happens to you. It does not mean you are to blame for the tragedy that struck, the unfair layoff, or the person who cheated you. You cannot control the cards you are dealt. The universe will frequently hand you a terrible hand. But ownership means acknowledging that you are 100% responsible for how you play those cards. You are completely responsible for your response, your strategy, your attitude, and your next move. When you shift to ownership, your language changes completely. You stop saying, "They ruined my life," and you start saying, "I allowed them to affect me for too long, but I am reclaiming my focus today." You stop saying, "The market is too bad for me to start a business," and you start asking, "What skills do I need to develop to thrive in this specific market?" Blame asks, "Why is this happening to me?" Ownership asks, "What am I going to do about it?" Taking ownership requires an immense amount of courage because it forces you to look into the mirror and admit that the common denominator in all your problems is you. But that realization shouldn't depress you. It should absolutely electrify you. Because if you are the problem, it means you are also the solution. If your choices, your hesitations, and your tolerances helped build the prison you are currently sitting in, then your decisions, your discipline, and your actions can tear it down. Stop waiting for an apology from the people who hurt you before you decide to heal. Stop waiting for the external environment to become perfect before you decide to work. The world does not owe you a smooth path, and it isn't coming to rescue you. Cast aside the crutch of blame. Take the wheel of your own life, accept the full weight of responsibility for your current position, and realize that the power to change your destination rests entirely in your own hands. One of the most profound paradoxes of human psychology is our tendency to stay stuck in situations that actively make us miserable. We look at people, or we look at ourselves, and we wonder why we remain in toxic relationships, dead-end careers, or repetitive cycles of self-destructive behavior. On the surface, it makes no sense. If something hurts, the logical human response should be to run in the opposite direction. Yet millions of people wake up every single day and choose to stay exactly where they are. They do this because they have fallen into the invisible, suffocating trap of finding comfort in their pain. We must understand that the human brain does not prioritize happiness, it prioritizes survival. And to the primitive parts of your brain, survival is completely synonymous with familiarity. What is familiar is predictable. What is predictable is safe. Therefore, even if your current situation is emotionally draining, financially restrictive, or mentally exhausting, Your brain prefers it over the unknown because it already knows how to survive that specific flavor of misery. You have developed defenses, coping mechanisms, and routines to manage that pain. It has become your baseline. The unknown, on the other hand, represents a total void. It is a blank space filled with uncertainty. To change your life means stepping into a territory where you might fail, where you might be rejected, and where you don't know the rules of engagement. To your brain, the threat of potential failure in the future feels far more terrifying than the guaranteed misery of the present. And so, we make a tragic bargain. We trade our long-term fulfillment for the short-term comfort of a familiar prison. This is how people become addicted to their own suffering. They form an identity around it. The pain becomes a twisted security blanket. It gives them a reason to complain, a justification for why they aren't achieving their goals, and a constant source of sympathy from the people around them. If they were to actually heal, step out of the rut, and pursue their true potential, they would lose their excuses. They would have to face the terrifying reality of personal responsibility. They would have to risk looking foolish. When you are trapped in this cycle, the discomfort of changing begins to look like the enemy, while the familiar ache of staying the same looks like home. You tell yourself lies like, "It's not really that bad," or "Everyone struggles with this," or "I'll make a change next year when things quiet down." But things never quiet down. The calendar pages just keep turning, and the walls of your comfort zone grow thicker and harder to break through. You aren't actually living, you are just managing your decay. Breaking free from the trap of comfort in pain requires a radical shift in your emotional threshold. You have to reach a point where you are no longer willing to negotiate with your excuses. You must deliberately make the thought of staying the same more painful than the thought of changing. You have to look at your life 10, 20, or 30 years from now, still stuck in the exact same spot, still harboring the exact same regrets, still operating at a fraction of your capability, and allow that vision to terrify you. You have to choose the discomfort of growth over the numbness of stagnation. Growth is heavy, it is awkward, and it will make you sweat. It requires you to shed your old identity and step into a version of yourself you haven't met yet. But that temporary friction is the only price of admission to a life of freedom. Stop decorating the walls of a prison cell just because you've lived there so long. Recognize the trap for what it is. Embrace the temporary unease of the unknown and walk out of the door. Most people fail to change their lives not because they lack the desire, but because they are trying to run away from a nightmare rather than running toward a dream. They focus all their energy on what they want to escape. The debt, the bad job, the toxic environment, the old mistakes. But a life built entirely on running away from the past is exhausting, unsustainable, and ultimately aimless. When you are constantly looking over your shoulder to see if your history is catching up to you, you cannot see where your feet are landing. To permanently break the gravitational pull of your yesterday, you must shift your entire operating system to vision-driven execution. A vision is not a casual wish list or a vague daydream about one day being wealthy, happy, or successful. A vague target ensures a precise failure. A true vision is a detailed, compelling, and vivid blueprint of your future reality. It is a picture so clear and an ideal so magnetic that it pulls you forward even when your current circumstances are screaming at you to quit. It is the answer to the ultimate question, what am I building? If you do not have a massive, clear answer to that question, your brain will naturally default to its oldest settings. In the absence of a compelling future, the mind always retreats to the past. But a vision without execution is just a hallucination. The world is filled with dreamers who sit on their couches visualizing a better life while taking zero practical action. They mistake the emotional high of imagining a grand future for the actual labor of building it. Vision gives you the destination, but execution is the vehicle that gets you there. Vision-driven execution means that every single daily action, every habit, every boundary, and every sacrifice is directly aligned with the future you have committed to create. It means you stop managing your life based on how you feel in the moment, and you start managing your life based on where you are going. When you operate from this framework, your daily discipline ceases to feel like a punishment and begins to feel like an investment. Going to the gym, studying a new skill, making cold calls, or saving money no longer feels like a chore because you clearly see how those micro actions are laying the bricks for the macro vision. You stop asking yourself, do I feel like doing this today? Because you already know that your feelings are a terrible guide. Instead, you ask, does this action move me closer to the vision, or does it keep me anchored to my past? Furthermore, a powerful vision completely changes your relationship with short-term pain and distraction. When the temporary discomfort of hard work hits you, or when temptation tries to pull you off course, a weak-minded person will cave because they have nothing bigger to fight for. But when you possess a crystal clear vision, you can look at a cheap distraction or a shortcut and say, that is beneath the standard of the future I am building. The vision acts as a filter, straining out the noise, the toxic opinions, and the trivial dramas that derail ordinary people. Stop looking backward. Your past has nothing new to tell you, and it has no new territory to offer. Your history is set, but your future is a completely open canvas. Lift your eyes above the immediate horizon of your current struggles. Paint a picture of your life 5 years from now that is so bold, so vivid, and so deeply meaningful that it completely consumes your focus. Once that target is locked in, put your head down and execute with relentless, uncompromising consistency. Let your vision dictate your daily execution, and let your execution turn your vision into an undeniable reality. Every single concept we have broken down today converges onto one inevitable truth. The trajectory of the rest of your life is entirely up to you. You can choose to leave this room and carry on as you were, treating your past as a lifetime sentence, hiding within the suffocating comfort of familiar pain, and letting an old, outdated narrative dictate what you are allowed to achieve. You can continue to look at your life through the rearview mirror, letting the ghosts of yesterday drive your vehicle into the ground. Or you can decide right now to draw a definitive line in the sand. You can choose to look at your past for what it actually is. Nothing more than a map, a collection of data, and a masterclass in resilience. You can step into the absolute power of the present decision, take total ownership of your current reality, and rewrite your internal narrative from one of a victim to one of an author. You can consciously reject the cheap numbness of stagnation. Lift your eyes to the horizon and lock your focus onto a massive, uncompromising vision for your future. The pen is in your hand. The clock is ticking. The road ahead is entirely blank, and nobody is coming to rescue you. Stop letting your past control your future. Stand up, step into your power, and execute on the life you were born to live.